Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of the Team Deakins Podcast, a collection of informal conversations between Roger and James Deakins and a guest. We never know where the conversation will take us, so listen in and see where it goes. This episode is sponsored by Aperture and its new Storm XT52, the industry's most powerful LED point source light. Brighter than a 6K HMI and powered by Aperture's revolutionary Blair light engine, the Storm XT52 is both a tunable white light and also the brightest ever adjustable color LED. Storm XT52, unrivaled output, only from Aperture. This episode is sponsored by HDR by Barco, where the magic of cinema reaches breathtaking heights with cutting-edge, high-dynamic range HDR laser projection. Don't miss the opportunity to immerse yourself in a spectacular world of deep shadows, dazzling highlights, and vibrant colors at select theaters near you. Buy your tickets, learn more, and experience extraordinary today. Visit hdrbybarco.com. Today we're speaking with a director. His credits are many and include Aaron Brockovich, Ocean's 11, Traffic, and Black Bag. We're pleased to welcome Steven Soderbergh today. Steven, thank you for doing this.
My pleasure.
We'd like to start with our normal question, which is, how did you get to where you are today? Is this something you always wanted to do, or did you take another path first and find this later? What's your story?
My father was a movie nut. He was an academic. He was a Marine, fought in Korea. Interesting person, and loved movies and wrote about movies and published throughout his life. And so he really gave us all the movie bug. He would rent every Christmas a 16 millimeter projector, and we would watch the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T every Christmas. So we were, we all loved movies and saw a lot of movies and talked about them. But then I got sort of activated in the summer of 1975 when I saw Jaws and came out of that thinking about movies differently. They were not something you just saw. Now I was curious how they were made and what does directed by mean. So a year later, we moved from Virginia to Louisiana, where my father was the dean of education at Louisiana State University. And I got my hands on some film equipment. He had hooked me up with some college students teaching young people how to make animation. And I was bored by that and took the camera off the animation stand and started shooting live action stuff, which just seemed much more fun. But I spent the next 4 years essentially hanging out with these college film students, going to high school on the campus of LSU every day after school, walking over to Coates Hall to hang out with my friends. And I became the sort of mascot of this film class. And we were all making films together. So I had no connections to the film industry at all, but realized by reading about how other people made their careers, you make short films, you write scripts, you try and get an independent feature made. That's a way in. And that was the approach I took. And many years later, paid off. After I graduated high school, I went to Los Angeles for a while looking for work. That didn't really play out. I came back to Baton Rouge and continued to make shorts, continued to write scripts, and finally wrote something that was cheap enough and interesting enough for somebody to bankroll at, around $1 million. So it was an 8-year kind of overnight success.
That was Sex, Lies, and Videotape, right? Your first film?
Yeah.
And well, how did you raise finance for it? I mean, $1 million is still, for somebody starting out, quite a lot.
Well, I'd gotten representation in the mid 80s. And like I said, I was writing sort of one spec script after another. And I got a job through one of these spec scripts writing a spy movie for an executive at Columbia Pictures, Bobby Newmeyer. And about a third of the way through writing that script, I told him, hey, I paused working on this to write this other thing that kind of came on quickly. I wrote the first draft of Sex Lies in a week. And I said, I feel bad that I stopped. Do you want to look at this? And he said, sure. And I sent it to him and he said, well, Columbia Pictures has a home video department where they pay for low budget movies that are going to go direct to video. I think I can get this made that way. I said, great. So he sent it to this gentleman named Larry Estes, who was running that program. Larry said, let's do it. And so it all happened kind of quickly. And it was understood this would never get a theatrical release. This is a direct-to-video title. And so even though that was the case, we submitted to Sundance and screened there. And, we got bought by Miramax. And what was unusual about that was at that time in the business, the home video rights were the most valuable rights to have on a title. And the fact that Miramax was willing to pay for just the theatrical rights and television. They didn't have foreign, that was already spoken for. That was unusual. And so we came out of Sundance with a very different idea, all of us, of our future.
How did you go about making it? How did you go about crewing it? I mean, who did you use? Did you use people you knew from Louisiana?
The movie was produced on the ground by John Hardy, who was somebody that I knew in Baton Rouge. He ran an ad agency and it made an independent film many years ago and was the closest thing that I could grab onto as a legitimate producer. We crewed out of Louisiana through people who did commercials in Louisiana. There was interestingly, a fairly vibrant commercial music video scene happening in Louisiana, mostly in New Orleans, but not exclusively. Our AD came from Dallas, and, it was a pretty small crew. It's funny, we had 30 days to shoot that movie. And I can tell you, I've never felt that level of calm on any other, like to think of it now, that I had 30 days to shoot that movie is ridiculous. Like it's based on the way I work now, the people I work with, whatever, I'm telling you, 15 and maybe less. Like there's no universe in which I could justify 30 days to shoot that film now. But that's what we had. The cash budget was $1.1 million. And, it was at that time, I was a very early adopter of not cutting on film. So we were transferring the negative to tape. And I was cutting on a 3/4 inch, news editing system. And I ended up, when the movie was locked, hand logging the edge code numbers to give to the negative cutter to cut
Wow.
the film. So it was,
Did that work out all right? No mistakes.
it was, we were close, but it really felt very DIY, the whole thing.
Mm.
And, one thing that we ended up doing, which I've done repeatedly, is when I got an edit together, I felt like if there's one moment that's not working, the moment where Andy McDowell finds her sister's earring while she's vacuuming. So we did a reshoot in the apartment that I was renting on Carpenter Avenue in Studio City. And we got Andy in there and shot the close-up of her after she's picked it up, doing the math of what it means that she's found this in her bedroom with her vacuum cleaner. Just that one shot we shot in the apartment that I was renting, because I was like, it's not landing. Like, that moment's not landing of seeing her realize her life is not what she thought it was. And I'm a huge proponent of reshoots. I mean, some people don't even like that word.
Right.
I'm fine with it. Why, if you have the opportunity, you see something that can be improved, why you wouldn't want to go back and get that thing. I always plan for it. I budget for it. And I can count on one hand the number of projects, not just movies, but television projects as well, where I haven't gone back and shot additional material to make it better. Like, I'm until they drag this thing out of my hands, I'm constantly looking at it going, is there anything that we've forgotten? Is there anything we can do? I'm in a constant conversation with what I call, the brain trust, where we have very private, honest conversations about what we're doing. And, almost invariably, somebody goes, I've never felt that thing was clear enough. I didn't feel like this thing landed. In some cases, huge cuts could be made if you shot a small piece of bridge material to accommodate that cut. And I've done that multiple times, where I'm going like, damn, I can cut 20 minutes out of this movie if I shoot a scene that's 90 seconds to get us from here to here. And I'll go do that.
I think that's very good advice for a lot of people these days. A lot of what we watch on streaming, you think, well, why don't they do that?
Well, I think there is a tendency that I've seen. I don't know who to blame for it.
Yeah.
It's not, I have theories, but the bottom line is, I think part of it grows out of this idea that the longer something is, the more important it feels.
Right.
And I've just never subscribed to that.
Right.
Like, if I see a movie that is long, that I feel is justified because just the entire grammar of it is built that way. There's a filmmaker, Nuri Bilge Ceylan, who I really like a lot. And the movies are, this is just how they're built. It's how they're written. It's how, they're the rhythms of it. That's just what they are. And I love them. But typically, especially I feel like if you're a filmmaker sort of born and bred in the United States, I just feel like it should move. Like, it should move, And that, at the same time, I'm a big believer in the sort of a press and release of the rhythm. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it should be going nine. I don't think everything should be like the third act. And I see some movies where I feel like, whoa, this feels like a 2-hour trailer for something. You know what I mean? Like they're not letting you breathe at all. Like, I'm very aware that you've got to have sort of peaks and valleys. If you were to look at the timeline, on the Avid, there should be like dense parts where there's a lot of edits, and then there should be parts where not so much. Like, so, but generally, I feel as a filmmaker, it's the hardest thing to do is fresh eyes. That's the hardest thing, is to have fresh eyes. And so I have various like schemes for how to make sure that I have fresh eyes. One of the things is, I have this brain trust, and I'm constantly posting versions of the movie and getting feedback. And then, of course, at a certain point, if it's a movie at any scale at all that I haven't paid for myself, you're getting notes, from the studio or people that paid for it. And I don't have a problem with that. I'm willing to withstand 19 notes that I disagree with to get to a note that I agree with. And sometimes there's a note, somebody's bumping on something, and you realize, oh, this happens a lot. They're bumping on that because of something that's wrong 15 minutes earlier.
Right.
They think the problem is there. The studio note will be, we have a problem with this scene, and I'll read that and go, oh, no, actually, the problem is way before that. And so I like that back and forth. It's once you become somebody who has contractual control over the thing you're making, it allows you to be much more magnanimous about listening to notes. I will admit that. Ocean's 11 was the first time on a studio film that I had final cut. Prior to that, it's just, what Kubrick called the power of persuasion, which is why, he decided after Spartacus, all right, I'm never going to make another movie where I don't have contractual final cut, because I don't think the power of persuasion is enough. But I was very lucky from the beginning of my career. I had such good producers, like really good producers. And I talked to young filmmakers about this. Like, they helped me, they protected me. You know what I mean? Like, it's hugely important, because frankly, I don't want to do their job. I just want to do my job. I don't want to produce the movie. I really rely on them. And on Out of Sight, which was the movie, it was a watershed project for me, because I'd been in the wilderness after Sex Lies. I made 5 movies that nobody liked and nobody saw. And I really needed this job. And I felt like I knew how to do it. I had to wait for everybody in town to pass. And my protection there is Jersey Films. I don't have the cut. And they did protect me. And they also protected me from myself. There was a scene that I wanted to cut in Out of Sight. It's after Jennifer and George have finally gotten together in the hotel. And she gets up, goes into the bathroom, looks in the mirror, comes out, and he's like, "Why are you mad? Like, what's up with you?" And they have this scene. And I cut it. I was like, "No, they hook up. We can go right to the next day." And they were beside themselves. Like, they told Ann Coates, "Don't turn that version over to the negative cutter." Like, literally, like, And they kind of talked me through this because I was worried the movie was too long. And they were like, you cannot cut this scene. It's too important. And they were right.
So did that make you realize the importance of outside
Yeah.
opinions?
Like I think it's okay for me to come from a place of let's make this lean and mean. And it's really important for me to have people that I trust and who are rooting for me, not commenting out of a place of fear, but of like protecting the thing. And they were like, you're hurting it. You're hurting it. You're hurting the movie. You're hurting their performances. It's 2 minutes and 14 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, and it's actually really important. And they were right. Like, they were right.
So you were offered that film. It wasn't something that you generated, but the film's after Sex, Lies and Videotape, which won at Cannes, right? Did you feel you could do anything at that point? I mean, I'm kind of really interested about you being so young and having such a great success with your first movie.
Well, it was exciting because I knew I was going to get to make another film. That was before I made Sex Lies. And even when it was finished, before it went to Sundance, this is not a done deal that I will get to make something else. So I was just excited that I get to make another movie. But you can read interviews with me at Sundance in 1989, where I say, I hope people don't think I'm just going to make this over and over again. I already had in mind a plan to make several different kinds of films to sort of get a sense of what my capabilities were. You know, it's very rare, not unheard of, but it's rare for somebody to emerge full blown, with their first film. And I didn't feel that I had. I felt I had a lot to learn. There are a lot of things I want to try. And so when you look at what followed, they were conspicuously different from Sex Lies and from one another, because I was trying to just get a feel for what my lane is here. So multiple failures that were extremely important for my development. So when Out of Sight became a possibility, I really wanted it because it felt like a way to utilize everything that I'd learned making those 5 films, that didn't work in one way or another. So then the trick was to kind of put myself in a space creatively while making that film for a studio with movie stars and, well-established producers, in which decisions were made in the same manner for me as they were when I was making Schizopolis, for $400,000. It's just, what does the thing want? What does the thing need? Take my ego out of it, take everything, like, what does it want to be? And what do I need to do for it to achieve absolute itness? And I met George, who turned out to be an important person in my career, creatively and personally. And he felt similarly. And we also liked the same kinds of movies. So when I went in to pitch myself to Jersey Films and to George, and I said, look, tonally, because a lot of people read the script and said, I don't understand the tone of this. And I said, tonally, it's a Hal Ashby movie in terms of its balance of humor and realism. I go, visually, it's going to be a little more active than a Hal Ashby movie, but emotionally, that was my pitch. And luckily, I was in a room with a lot of people who appreciated that reference and said, okay.
I was going to say, so you might be in another room where they didn't. Hal Ashby's latest films didn't do so well, sadly.
Well, look, I don't think there's been another filmmaker ever whose first 7 films are that good. Like the first 7 movies he made, from The Landlord through Being There, that's incredible. Like, that's an incredible run. Now, the story there is kind of interesting because it involves, filmmakers that were huge influences on me in this sort of American New Wave that started generally around 1966. And we can say generally ended around 1979, 1980, Heaven's Gate. A lot of these people self-destructed. And that was something that I looked at and thought, well, I'm not going to do that. I may make mistakes creatively, but I'm not going to self-destruct the way some of these people did through whether it was drugs or just, bad behavior. I just thought, it's hard enough to get people to say yes without giving them a reason to say no that is entirely within your control. And I talk about this to film classes. I spend the first part of the conversation talking about directing for the most part. And then I spend the last quarter talking about character, who you are, how you behave, because it matters. And the reason that I was in the running to even get the job for Out of Sight was Casey Silver, who was the head of the studio I'd worked with on 2 of these movies that I'd made that failed, King of the Hill and The Underneath. Casey gave me my first legit writing job in 1985 when he was at TriStar, and he liked me. And he knew if Steven has this job, the next time I hear from him will be when he has a cut to show me. There aren't going to be any problems. There won't be any drama. It's not going to go over schedule or over budget. There won't be any stories. Like, I know him. And like, he's a rational person. And that matters. That's a currency. You know what I mean? When you're flying high, I guess you could argue nobody cares. But you know what? Very few people leap from mountaintop to mountaintop. And when you're in the valley, how people talk about you and what your reputation is as a person matters.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because I think a lot of people think that in order to make it through the higher levels of filmmaking, which is a very tough world, you have to show yourself to be strong, and that often leads to bad behavior because they think that they're showing, I can do this, so I'm, you have to take me seriously. But I think what you're saying, you don't see as much, and so it really stands out, and you're right.
Well, this is how I try to explain it to aspiring filmmakers. It's the difference between confidence and ego. Those are 2 different things. People who are egomaniacs can't solve their own problems because they don't listen. People who are confident can listen. They can take in other viewpoints, filter what's useful and what's not useful, and then make a decision. And so that is something, fortunately, that I grew up around. That's the way my father, who was an educator, thought. the first mentor I had as a filmmaker, Michael McCallum, who was running the film class at LSU, that's how he thought. So what was inculcated in me was this sort of idea of a salon, a kind of creative salon, in which, yes, there has to be a decider, but it's a kind of open, free-flowing conversation about what's better.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, how do we make it better? And like I said, everybody, I think, wants to be in a room. If they're the studio or there's somebody that's going to pay for this thing, they want to be in a room with somebody who seems confident. But egomaniacs, like, I worked on crews before Sex Lies. To make money, I would work on crews, commercial crews, music video crews. I saw what happened when the director was a diva. I saw how the crew shut down. And they're like, we're just going to let this dude drown. Like, he's got a problem right now and it can be solved, but we're just going to stay mute because this person has behaved so badly that they don't deserve to hear the solve. And it confirmed what I already knew, but it was really the last job I had before Sex Lies that happened. And I was like, yeah, this is, you just never know where the solve is going to come from. And if you've created an environment in which people don't feel comfortable saying a sentence that starts with "what if," you're not going to make the best version of that thing. Like, you're just not.
But it's also difficult because when you're in certain higher budget films, there's a lot of politics and there's a lot of people around you coming from the studio side, perhaps, that are in this society of I can't make a mistake and and are worried for their jobs. And so to work around that and to be a good person, that people will remember is difficult because you're also working with people that don't work that way, that and so how to get around that sometimes I think is really hard to figure out.
No, I agree. I mean, my heart goes out to anyone who came through the system, whether it's like me, came up through the independent system and is now being given a big opportunity. And the pressures that are involved when you take on a large scale project. Like I said, in that situation, my first thought is, who's the producer? Like, they have got to be the go-between. They have got to be, ideally, that's their role, is to sort of navigate what the filmmaker's trying to do, what the expectation is on the part of the studio or the financier, figuring out, how to make sure that's aligned. Here's one way you can avoid a catastrophic situation is I'm totally transparent about what I'm doing and why. You know what I mean? Like, there's no mystery to my process. Everybody knows everything all the time. I don't want people thinking about me, worrying about me, wondering about me. Like, I don't want to be a story. So everybody knows going in, this is what I'm intending to do, and this is what it will take. And if this isn't understood and agreed upon by all of us, then I'm either the wrong person or you need to agree with me, And so, apropos of that, on Out of Sight, again, I desperately need this job. And I said, if it's not Jennifer Lopez, I can't do this. I engaged with every potential actress that could play that part. And there were a lot of people capable of playing that part. I just felt her with George in an Elmore Leonard movie. I felt the movie was at stake. And I said to Casey Silver, if it's not her, I can't do this. And he was like, whoa, like, you don't, I didn't have the kind of power typically that that would come with making a statement like that. But the point is, this is not a comeback movie for me if creatively it doesn't work. And in my mind, it only works if it's her. Luckily, George agreed with me, and Jersey Films agreed with me, and we got Jennifer. And so, that isn't coming from a place of ego. That's just me going, I don't think it works without her. And if you disagree, I'm the wrong guy.
Right.
And it's also not getting yourself into a situation that doesn't allow you to do what it is you see. And that's really important for people to realize when they're going into a project, to make sure that they don't get into something that can't be what they want because they've said, okay, whatever you want.
Well, look, you're always making compromises. What I would argue is different about this is casting mistakes are fatal. There are a lot of other compromises you can make on a movie that you look at and go, wow, I wish I'd not agreed to that. But if it's casting, that's, to me, there's no, it's binary. It's either the right person or it's not. And so in talking to a young filmmaker and talking about not compromising, that's literally the only area where I go, you can't compromise on casting because those mistakes can't be undone. And it's the number one thing the audience is attaching to. You know what I mean? You can get a lot of stuff wrong. If you've cast the movie perfectly, you're probably going to be okay. You can get the wardrobe wrong. It can look shitty. It can have a bad score. But if you've cast it perfectly, you've got a good shot. So that's one area where I just feel if I see it this way, I got to go that way.
I want to ask you, you were saying before that you were taking projects, trying to extend yourself, find yourself as a filmmaker. I mean, it seems to us that your whole career, you're like a chameleon, the kind of work you've chosen, the kind of projects you've chosen, from major sort of Hollywood films to Che to, I'm kind of interested how you make those choices and then how you think through that project, because so many of them look so differently. I'm thinking in particular between, say, Traffic and Contagion. The kind of style of the movies are very different. I'm kind of interested in your whole process, really.
Well, I think there are two kinds of filmmakers. There are filmmakers who have a style that is applied to whatever they do. And then there are filmmakers like myself who work out from the material and wonder, okay, what kind of style would best serve this material if I take me out of it? And both of those are legitimate. The Coen brothers, there's just a way they shoot, and I love the way they shoot. And that's how they're not going to just throw that out. Even now that they're working separately, you can still see there's a way that they like to shoot. And there are times when I have adopted that style of shooting. And then there are other times where I feel like, and Traffic was one of them, and then Che had the two films had two different styles and two different formats.
Right.
But in Traffic, the reference point is, Battle of Algiers and The French Connection. I just watched those two movies in a loop while I was preparing and making that film. It's the difference between staging and capturing. Traffic is a movie in which you want to feel like you've captured it. Ocean's 11 is a movie in which you want to feel like it was staged. And this very elaborate thing suddenly ends up in this shot, and it's just so, and it's all choreographed. That's the pleasure of that. But the pleasure of something like Traffic is feeling this whole thing is out of control. And when I see something, it's like snatched. It's not staged. And I like both of those. So it just depends on what the script is. Now you mix those things at your peril. You can at times, you know what I mean? But generally, I think you need to have a grammar. When you start a project, you need to establish a basic grammar and a set of rules and a toolkit that is specific to that thing. And it's frustrating for me to see something in which I don't feel that principle is in play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where I feel it's like, yeah, I know you can do anything, but at a certain point,
But why?
yeah, it's like I remember my wife and I were in New York when Hurricane Sandy hit and we lost power in our apartment for a week. And one of the things that I did to sort of get through it, I went back and read like all these Raymond Chandler novels. I swear to you, I think the sum total of different words that he uses is like 200.
Yes.
And it was such a lesson in distillation. And so I find myself, as I continue to work and as I get older, trying to figure out whatever the style is that I feel should be adopted for this project is trying to distill it into its absolute essence. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not how many shots do we need? It's like, well, how few do we need? Like, and it's not because I'm lazy and I don't want to shoot a lot of shots. There are sequences and scenes that you look at. Black Bag's a perfect example. The dinner table scenes, I know, all right, there's going to be a lot of shots. Like, these are our action sequences. And I need to really get granular with these two scenes, but make sure that you feel the intention of the cutting patterns so that it just doesn't feel like I just shot a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, they have to build. They have to, it's like, these sets of shots work for this section. Then we move into this kind of shot for this section. And then you know what I mean? Like, you have to feel, even if the audience can't articulate it, they need to feel a sort of shift and an escalation as the scenes go on. Like, that's your job. And so when I see things in which I feel like nobody's thinking about that, I get frustrated because I feel like this is very basic directing. This is what you're supposed to figure out. You're supposed to make choices on set,
It's interesting because I remember when I started working with Joel and Ethan, they always storyboard, but they would storyboard like wider shots of a conversation and then closer shots. And then when he set up for the wider shot, they would cut at the moment they knew they were going to cut. they wouldn't run it on like most directors
Same
do.
with the close-ups.
And I read on Black Bag, those dinner scenes, that you actually laid it out with stand-ins and then kind of did a kind of storyboard of the shots you wanted of the scene before you actually shot it, yeah? Is that your normal process? I mean, how is that different than, say, Traffic? I mean, what were you doing?
Yeah, no, I did that on Black Bag because I felt I couldn't justify, it's a 12-page scene. I couldn't
Right.
justify shooting all of that scene at every angle. So, what I did is I took one of the viewfinder apps that exist that are excellent, brought stand-ins in, mapped out every shot that I felt belonged in this movie. You know, not just every shot I could think of, but a shot that I felt belonged in this film. And then took the script and sort of laid out on a giant whiteboard. I printed out those stills. And I go, okay, so it starts like this, and then it moves into these shots, and then we move into these shots, and then we move into these shots. And so we were basically shooting 2 pages, per angle as we worked our way through it. We never shot the whole scene from any angle. There was just no point. And so, I would tell the cast, we're going from here to here. And I'm going to call cut, here. So don't be alarmed. Because otherwise, and that's rare. The only other time I've done that was the final scene in the house in Out of Sight. That whole last 20 minute, whatever that, of when they come to the house, and that's the fifth act of the movie. I did the same thing. I brought in, I worked with the actors. We rehearsed it. I figured out where everybody was going to go. I brought in stand-ins. I shot stills, put them up on a giant board, and we marked them off as we went because it was just a really complex sequence. But that's the only time I've done that. All the Ocean's films, I made that up as we were going.
So you were making the shots with a blocking rehearsal in the mornings, or did you come in with anything pre-planned?
No, my lack of visual imagination really demands that I want to see it. I want to see it.
Yeah.
And I want to see it on set.
Yeah.
So I try to create a circumstance in which that's a feature and not a bug. And that includes having a set in which the lighting is built in. It's you know what I mean? Like it's either entirely lit by practicals, or I have control over the sources that are coming in off the set to a degree that makes it easy for me to, if I go, okay, now we're over here, somebody's on an iPad and just hits a button and we're set. Like I want to move. You know what I mean? I'm operating the camera, and it's intimate, and we're moving. Like when actors come on the set in the morning, wired, clothed, having come through makeup, we start blocking. And as soon as I see something start to emerge that I feel, we start shooting. I'm like, okay. Sometimes I see the whole thing, but if I've seen enough to get 4 or 5 shots in, I'm like, let's go. Let's just start. Because I know once I get to shot 4 or 5, I will have been, I feel like now I know what 6 through 10 is by having done through 5. And so for the actors, they never leave. If it's a 10-hour day, they're shooting for 8.5. So they never have to do that thing of, decelerating, and then I have to like fluff them to get them up again. You know what I mean? Like they're just there and they're in it and they stay because what I found is this process they like being around it. So even if they're not in the shot, they just stay there to watch what's happening with the other cast members, and they want to see, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's that momentum and that feeling to me translates, I think.
Is that why you morphed into Peter Andrews, the cinematographer,
Well,
on Traffic, right?
Yeah, that was, I'd shot my short films. I was trained as a still photographer in high school, knew how to operate a dark room. So this was the great thing about photographic principles, which distinguishes it from a lot of other things in this universe, is they don't change. You know what I mean? Like a light of a certain intensity at a certain distance will generate that many foot candles. You know what I mean? Like, it's not an opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. The inverse square law is the inverse square
It's
law. You
math.
can't really
It's
change
simple.
that. Yeah.
Like, and that's great. And what I was discovering through the films prior to Traffic was I like things to look a certain way. There's certain photographic principles that I'm sort of attached to. And I didn't have control of the set. And it was making me crazy. And I decided that the trade-off of me not being you, Roger, or Chivo, or, any of the people that I consider to be at the top of this field. I'm not that, but I'm willing to trade that for the momentum and the feeling that I get by having that responsibility. And it's, so to me, it's worth it to make that trade. And I worked with very good cinematographers, and I drove them crazy, I think. And they were all very kind to me. And when we were shooting Aaron Brockovich, Ed Lockman asked me, because it became clear near the end of shooting Aaron that Traffic was coming. And he goes, who's going to shoot that? And I said, I think I am. And he went, it's time. Now, I want to be clear. There are a lot of ways to read that response, but Ed has been one of two people who've been supportive of this move. And I'm worried for you, both of you, that even talking to me will be viewed as a sort of tacit approval.
No.
And I just want to be clear that the views expressed by Peter Andrews do not necessarily reflect the views of Team Deakins. I just want to make that clear. This is not a popular thing to do, is what I'm saying. And Ed Lockman and Dante Spinotti have been the only two people who've been kind to me and complimentary. It's for whatever reason, and we could talk about this. This is not a popular thing to do.
That's terrible. I got to say, years ago, I was kind of looking to direct, and I did write some stuff on that. And if I'd ever got to direct, I would have shot my own material. Yeah. So I got no problem with it at all. Only thing I want to pull you up on, put you on the spot. You once said that anytime you take a lamp off the truck, you make the shot look worse. But I wonder what James Wong Howe would have said about that remark.
Yeah.
I mean, I get the style of filmmaking you're talking about, but, all those great films like HUD and I mean...
Yeah, I think
there's a difference, isn't there? You know what I mean?
I think, I'm half serious there.
Yes, I do, yeah.
Because what happened was the technological advances that occurred in the 60s as regards to film stock that allowed us to now shoot the world the way the world actually looked changed the language of cinematography forever. And, what James Wong Howe believed and what Greg Toland believed that you and I believe is adherence to the source. What is the source of the light here? And as much as possible, do everything you can to adhere to the source, regardless of which way the lens is looking. They were doing that at a time where it was really hard to do that. Like these film stocks were criminally slow, and they were trying like hell to go, the light's coming from here, and it's always coming from here, and we're going to try to stick to that. But it really wasn't until the 60s where you could do that in a way that was kind of manageable. David Watkin, for me, is the sort of beginning of what I consider to be modern cinematography. You're going to lose that girl sequence in Help. If you watch that now, has all of the basic photographic principles that we are all following. And whether it's the mixture of color temperatures, how the sources are being used, the hot top backlight, that we all love when we can justify it. Like, you just watch that sequence in Help and you're like, that looks like it was shot tomorrow. So you have David Watkin, everything he shot throughout the 60s, black and white and color, is stunning. Vittorio comes in, Gordon Willis right behind, and those basic principles still apply. And even in something, I've been watching your work since you started working. And I had to tell you, I know it must have been really frustrating for all those years to feel like the runner-up. What you did on Blade Runner 2049 was insane. Like, it was
It was insane. Yeah.
it just was somewhere else. And I was so happy to see you walk away with some hardware for that.
Oh,
And
thank you.
again, it's you're adhering to those principles, which is like, where's the light coming from? And what is its intensity? What is its shape? Is it hard? Is it soft? What's its color? Like, what is its relation to the other light sources? All of that stuff. That, I love having those conversations. And for me, all of those conversations are happening in prep. They're happening with the gaffer. They're happening with the production designer. And you're building that language, as you're preparing the film. Because I feel like when you get on set, like, we ought to know.
Yeah.
I'm all about on set when in terms of performance and character, let's try this, or that's a new thing. But I feel like photographically, you should know. What took me a while to get past was allowing things to be ugly.
Yeah, I think that's a real question.
Like to resist the impulse when you go into a space,
right?
And it's hideous. to make it look better and not go, that's how this looks. Like there's this
that's one the world that you're in. Yeah.
In Black Bag, early scene when they all meet in this pub before they go to dinner, I really had to like duct tape my mouth and my hands to not change what was there. But I was like, this is how these places look. Like, it's just how they look. Like when I walked in to scout it, this is how it looked. And I had the ability. They had various, the lights over the bar and the sconces. I had the ability, if I wanted to like dial all that stuff in And I went, it's ugly. It's just ugly. And
It's ugly and perfect.
and that took me a long time to allow that to happen, because I'm operating from the principle of what the audience, what affects the audience. And the principle there is the audience looks at that and goes, yeah, that's how that place looks. Whereas if I made it look awesome, they were like, that looks awesome, but it's not how that place looks. And I want them to feel like they're looking at the real world. Usually. There are always exceptions where you've got to get stylized. I mean, look, a rural nighttime exterior is the thing that brings all of us to our knees.
It's the worst. Yeah.
You've like, okay, what unjustifiable principle are we going to adopt here? Like, so I've gone every direction of like, okay, it's a giant source that comes here, and then when we're over here, we're always backlit. Two, on my $1 million movie Unsane, I'm like, we're going day for night. We're just going to do day for night. We're going to go like hyper stylized day for night. There's no other way for me to accomplish what we have to accomplish here. I don't have the money or the time. And so, I think as long as there's an underlying principle and an intention that is consistent, you can do a lot. Like, and what I love about it is that the audience, it's similar to sound, in which the images, of course, they're affected by the images. But I think when it comes to light and composition and cutting patterns, and this is something that every cinematographer should understand, which is editing. Like, I think anybody who wants to become a cinematographer should be put in a situation where they have a scene and they have to help come up with the coverage, and then they have to watch how that's cut together.
Right.
Like, these images have to like blend seamlessly.
Right.
So I think it's such a wonderfully efficient way to affect an audience with light, how light works. And so I don't know, it's just something, fortunately, that from a young age, I was very aware of and interested in, like, just how light works and why, if I had a response to a certain image, if it had an effect on me, why? Like, I wanted to know why. Like, why do I think why does that image do something to me? Like, what is it about that? So I think about it all the time.
Yeah, I think that's really also the strength of films. If you can have shots in there that make you react, and you couldn't really put words to the feeling, but it works within the scene, and it actually is, to me, is stronger than dialogue.
Yeah.
Because it's so visceral, I
Well, a
suppose.
movie should work, in my view, and this is part of my fresh eyes sort of strategy. A movie should work. I hate to say this to people in the sound department. It should work silent. You should be able to watch it silent and understand it. And part of my process when I'm editing is I will watch the movie silent. I'll have a playlist of music that I'm listening to, but I'll watch the movie silent to see if just visually it's flowing and hitting, and the audience should be able to understand what is happening, even emotionally, based on the staging and the cutting. And so that's one of my sort of methods of looking at it, as though it's a new thing, is to watch it silent with like a completely different soundtrack on it.
Mm.
I think a lot of the pushback to you shooting is actually not that you're lighting, but you're lighting and operating. I got a lot of pushback because I've always operated, and that's always
Well,
been a big
didn't you
problem.
have trouble with the unions? Because Roger certainly did and had to
Mm.
have a standby on set.
Yeah, the
Um,
early on, I had to have a standby, and then that went away at a certain point. I can't remember when, but on the first few films,
yeah.
we had to have a standby. And I think it's well, we haven't even gotten into the big thing. We're how long into this?
Right.
Because I think they're related. So we haven't even gotten into film versus digital.
Oh boy.
And
instead of film versus digital, can we go film versus streaming and TV? Because since you retired in 2013, you seem to be very, very busy and done a lot of television as well.
Yeah. Well, look, it's my personal opinion that the language of cinema has nothing to do with where you witness that image. The language of cinema, it's a way of seeing, and it's a point of view, and it's a signature that is present no matter what the screen is you're looking at. And if it's not present, it doesn't matter what screen you're looking at. You know what I mean? You can have an IMAX camera. If you don't know where the lens should be, it doesn't matter if you have an IMAX camera. And so, what I was getting to is that what digital has done, I think, and for some people is a dilemma or a difficulty, is it's removed an aspect of mystery that goes on behind the curtain when you used to shoot film. And I think some people miss that. I don't.
No, nor do I. Yeah.
The fact I don't have to deal with a lab, I'm so happy. So that's, the joke about bringing the light off the truck. My experience of working with digital is that it's at its best when you're kind of working at the toe of the sensor. You know what I mean? And it looks its worst when you've got like a lot of when you've got a lot of light, and it's an inversion of how you used to think about film. Used to be protecting the bottom when you were shooting celluloid. Now in digital, you got to protect the top. That's where it falls apart. And so what I love about it is, in Black Bag, that the scene where Michael and Kate are in the theater watching the movie, I was able to project an actual movie off the screen. We were at 3,000 ISO.
Yeah.
And it was velvet.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, come on, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it looks like it would look. You know what I mean? Like, I literally, that was the only light in that scene is what is bouncing off the screen. We had big trouble in Little China. I don't know why, but that was the clip we were using to create the light. But that's a dream for me, because I'm like, okay, now I can shoot the world the way the world is.
Yeah.
And then, there's an added benefit, because an hour after wrap, I have the footage and I can cut. And I know in an hour if I have a problem and I need to go back and do something again. And 2 or 3 times a week, I call the AD at 9:00 and go, I need another shot, I need an extra shot, or I want to do that again. So get everybody, like, first thing tomorrow, I want to do that shot again. To me, I can't put a price on that. Like, that's just, to be able to iterate that quickly for the way I work is invaluable.
Mm, mm.
And for us also, because we always have a calibrated monitor on set, to be able to show the
That's it.
director, this is how dark it is.
Mm,
Are you
mm.
okay with this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I look, I think, again, personal opinion alert, I have to say, when it comes to the things that matter to the audience, the capture medium is really low.
Really?
Yeah.
It's they care more about literally the shirt or the blouse that the lead character's wearing than what you shot it on. They really do.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's an argument to be made, even given all the technology that exists with the plugins and what you can do in post, which is insane. If you told me, all right, I'm going to shoot black and white, 2-perf Technoscope. I'm like, okay, that could look, yeah, that, I think you can recreate that, but go for it. When it comes to projection, I don't know what we're talking about. I really don't,
Yeah.
Mhm.
because projector weave, dirt,
Yeah.
splices, a lack of edge-to-edge focus because the thing is vibrating so much. This is not a normal state of affairs. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that's not what's happening in a film camera when you're running the negative through it to shoot the thing. None of those things exist. So I feel
Right.
like, look, I'll give you some slack on your capture medium, but I've seen stuff projected. You've seen the Dolby Vision, XDR. Like, you can't get black like that on film. You cannot,
Right.
Yeah.
because of the fact that you're
Yeah.
shooting a light through a piece of plastic. Like it's like, to get blacks that are just black. I
Hmm.
mean, that's really satisfying to me.
Mhm.
So look, it's people get very passionate about it. And like I said, there's just a way that I like to work that this really plays into, and I find really helpful and satisfying,
Mm, mm,
And
Mhm.
now, depending on what kind of film you're making, the ability, I'm sure you've done this, Roger, at times, for certain shots, like you just strip the thing down to like the body and the lens to get it like in a place that
Yeah.
would be impossible to get
Yeah.
a normal film camera in. Like we've done that where it's just like,
Exactly.
it's the body and a lens, and we've set the focus and we've just put it in this place. Like that's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, we couldn't have done 1970
No,
without
no
the
technology.
small
Well, and
digital
how long
camera.
were those takes?
We can't tell. We're not allowed to
Well,
say.
I mean,
They were long.
long,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. 8 minutes. Some of them. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I think it's just really exciting. And,
Yeah.
as I said, though, all this tech doesn't matter if you don't have a scene that's worth shooting.
Exactly. It's a
Right.
And you
story.
don't know
Yeah.
where the lens should be. So talk to me. So you guys met on set, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
would the way that you met and started to engage have withstood the HR department of today?
No one's ever asked us that before. Ah,
Was it
Probably not
appropriate?
when you
Was
think
it
about it.
appropriately chased?
Well, actually, it
Yeah,
was
it
until
was. No,
the
really.
very end of the movie, when we finished. That's when you asked me out. And I
Okay.
was
Yeah,
pretty
no,
So you
it was
did.
surprised.
very,
Yeah.
it was very
We were
chaste,
we were
actually. Yeah.
trying to be so professional.
Yeah.
We really were.
No, we had one date a weekend off.
Well, that's
I call it a date and she doesn't. So I don't know what was going on, really. No, it was only at the end of the movie.
Okay.
Only at the end of the movie did we find that we both moved to LA in the last 6 months or something. And we both living in Santa Monica, only a few hundred yards away from each other. So it all seemed destined. But yeah, no, it would have
passed
survived today's
muster.
climate.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
So I last thing I want to ask you is that
Oh, you want to get off that subject?
I do quickly. No, the way the business is changing. I mean, I was joking, but you did say you were retiring a long time ago now. But you have been doing a lot more television, and also Black Bag, your latest movie, you say wasn't very successful at the box office, and you feel that the whole idea of medium budget filmmaking is changing. What do you see of the future then?
Yeah, it's tricky. Look, the kind of film I really made my career on, mid-range, it started with low-budget independent films, but the thing that really got me sort of going were these mid-range budgeted movies for grown-ups. And
Right.
that theatrically, that audience is not leaving the house. And so we find ourselves, in this landscape of extremes, kind of fantasy spectacles on one end, lower budget genre films and independent films on the other end, and no sort of middle. But look, I'm encouraged by the fact that there's always something happening that I'm not aware of that 6 months from now could completely alter the landscape. You know what I mean? Sinners, sort of breaks all the rules of what you're supposed to do and how it will perform. You know what I mean? So things still happen that make you feel it's alive. It's still alive. What I miss and what I think the audiences miss or would miss if they thought about it is just a wider selection of material to go see. But it's an art form, so it doesn't work in a linear way, and I try not to be. I gave it the year that I was retiring. I gave a speech at the San Francisco International Film Festival about the state of the industry. And a lot of the things that I said then 12 years ago are still true. But I still believe in the ability of a filmmaker to be the exception and potentially create a kind of flying wedge or a group of filmmakers that turn the whole business in another direction. And that's our job. I mean, I can complain about it, but at the end of the day, it's my job to adapt. Like I got to adapt. I got to figure it out. What you don't want to do is just keep doing the same thing over and over that doesn't seem to work. So, to be honest, in the aftermath of Black Bag, I have to look at that. I mean, that's a sexy cast, and the movie's 95 minutes long. It got good press. All of them did everything that we asked in terms of promoting the movie. I'd be stupid if I came out the other end of that and went, well, I'm going to do exactly that same thing again. I've got to figure out, okay, well, how do I find something that I'm in love with that has the potential to reach a broader audience than what I've been doing? All I can do is just keep looking and keep thinking about that, because you don't make these things to be seen in a closet. Like you want
Right.
people to see them. And it's no fun
Yeah.
to somebody go like, oh, what have you been doing? Oh, I did this thing. Right. And they're like, oh, did that come out? Like, that's not fun. And
No.
so
Yeah.
that's my job. It's like, okay, I got to find something. I can keep doing things like presents that I just do completely on my own. And those are fun, but I don't want to just do that. It's fun to work on a big canvas sometimes. You know what I mean? And so I've just got to find something where I'm looking for something that I feel has some scale and also has the potential, to be seen by a lot of people. And it's tricky. That Venn diagram of what I like and what could work, it's tricky.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you so much for taking the
Oh,
time.
no,
I
my
mean,
pleasure. Oh, and one thing I wanted to ask, though, are you jealous when filmmakers that you've worked with multiple times go off and work with like other DPs?
Jealous? I suppose, but I kind of, I suppose you get all those
Like if
kind
they
of,
didn't even call.
well, they usually do, but you get all those kind of emotions. But on the other hand, I always think back, I've been so lucky. For Christ's sake, I've been so lucky. I mean, you say Blade Runner and getting an Oscar. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I kind of think I was so lucky to start off and do 1984.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have left it then, the business then. I nearly did, actually. I mean, just to have had the opportunity to do something like that, you go, wow.
Yeah.
Where I'm from, that was like, no way you're going to get in the film business. I'm sure, like you at Louisiana.
Yeah. I've got a question for you.
Ah.
I think it was full circle. It was a television thing, but on the credits, the DP is Steven Soderbergh.
Is now Steven Soderbergh.
Well, not on the
What happened
credits
to
of the
Peter?
actual show.
Oh,
That
okay.
might be
That's
like
that old IMDb. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty.
Too
they're
clever.
not very scrupulous over there. But
Yeah.
no, look, it's funny that credit came about, and I'm glad it did, on Traffic, because we had submitted directed and photographed by, and the Writers Guild said you can't have another credit between the writer's credit and the director's credit, which this does. I didn't want my name on the film more than once. I don't typically like to have my name on anything I've done more than once. I've never taken a possessory credit. I've never taken a producer credit on anything I've ever directed. I feel directed by is plenty. So, given the option of having my name appear twice or employing a pseudonym that was a shout out to my father, who gave me the movie bug, that seems like a really appealing option. So my father is Peter Andrew Soderbergh. And so when I edit, Marianne Bernard is my mother's maiden name. So
Oh, wow.
it turned out at the time, I was like, why is the Writers Guild being so dogmatic? And then as soon as I decided, no, it'll be Peter Enders, I was like, I love this. This is great. When I see that, it makes me feel good, because if it wasn't for my dad, I wouldn't be doing this. So I think you're right, Roger. It's such, I have the best job in the world. Like, I feel I have the best job in the world. You couldn't design a job better than this. You go into a room and you say to somebody, I'm thinking about this thing. Will you pay for it? And they go, sure. Like, it's fantastic. Which is why I feel, to create an atmosphere of joy in the work is appropriate. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard, but I always enjoy it because it's just a fascinating thing to do and to tell stories, which I think we need stories. People, we're wired for narrative. Like, we need stories. It's how we learn. It's yeah, I feel really lucky, as you said, growing up in a suburban subdivision in Baton Rouge. You wouldn't think there was a series of steps to get there, but I don't know if you felt this, either of you. I was like, I don't know. It's got to happen to somebody. You know what I mean? Like, people do get into this and emerge. Like, it happens to people. Why shouldn't it happen to me if I apply myself? So, I feel lucky, but also, I just loved it more than anything else in the world.
Yeah. I think another thing about making movies is it's not, you're telling a story, but the story's also telling itself
Yeah.
to you all the way down. In prep, it seems one way, but then you shoot with the actors and wow, something new comes up. And then you go in the editing room and it all starts to shuffle into place. So it's exciting
Discovery.
because it's
Yeah.
kind of constantly evolving.
Well, exactly. That's why I talk about, this idea of what it wants to be. Like, it
Exactly.
wants to be something, and you have to listen to that, which is why I think people who've been on my set are like, wow, he doesn't talk a lot. And I'm like, no, because I'm trying to listen to what this thing wants to be. And actors, when it comes to actors, I don't want them thinking, I want them being. And
Right.
so I don't want to like chatter at them. I want them to just be that person, and I don't want to like get in their head. I really want to I want all of us to be surfing what the thing wants, and I don't want to be the focus of that. And when you're in that flow state, there's nothing better.
And do you feel though also as a director that you're there also to somewhat be outside eyes for the actors, because the actors, as they're going through what they're going through, can sometimes take a wrong turn and maybe over
Oh, absolutely. No, you're
overreact.
supposed to have the
Yeah.
30,000-foot view of this. And the point,
Yeah.
here's my point about this idea of having the footage like an hour after shooting. So on the movie that we just finished, The Christophers, we're shooting on a Friday. We do a scene, and as soon as I start cutting the footage together, I realized that what one of the actors was doing that I encouraged and allowed them to do wasn't right. And right away, I texted the AD and I texted the actor. And I said, Monday morning before we go to this other location, we got to go back there. Don't strike that. We got to go back there. I just need to do this coverage, this side.
Yeah.
And I told the actor, I go, this is my fault. I should have, now that I've seen it. And it was one of those things where you're shooting the last scene that these two characters have together in the movie right at the beginning.
Oh, gosh.
So what I saw when I was able to edit it was I got a better sense of like, oh, this is the last time they meet. This person should be behaving differently based on what's happened before. And we went back first thing Monday morning and just shot that side. And I showed it to the actor and they were like, oh, yeah. That's I'm supposed to see that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Especially, I mean, I'm assuming that you don't shoot in continuity because that just makes it so much
Well,
longer.
it's great when you kind of can, but it's just
Yeah,
not,
but
it's usually really not practical, you know. And
yeah.
so again, the ability to quickly see if I've made a miscalculation, because
Mhm.
even though I'm supposed to have the objective view of it all and have the whole thing in my head, I'm as susceptible as anybody to, you know, the hothouse atmosphere of being on set and an actor who feels like I want to go this way. Like I can get caught up in that too. You know what I mean? I'm not a
Mhm.
robot.
Mm, mm,
So the
mm.
key is,
Yeah.
to me, it's the Pixar mantra: be wrong as fast as you can. You know,
I like
yeah,
that one.
it's good.
Yeah.
And so
That's a good one.
that for me is
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I knew within 2 hours of leaving the set that I was wrong, and we were able to go pick
Mm.
that thing up Monday morning, no problem. Didn't cost us anything. We just kept that set up. It took an hour, and then we were back doing
Mhm.
what we were supposed to be doing. So, you know, that's as you're saying, I love that process. I love when it's great when you get it, but it's great when you don't, but you know why, and you can go back and get it.
Yeah. And then you get it better.
Yeah,
You know, you go,
always.
wow.
So,
Yeah.
well, I hope, like I
Well,
said,
good.
I hope you don't get trashed for giving me the mic. Hey,
Thank you so much for doing this. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you.
It's
It's
a
been
been
total
really
pleasure.
great. Thank
really
you so
good. And
much.
keep making your different movies. This
Yes.
is good.
Yes.
Thank you.
We want to see that.
If you'd like to sponsor the Team Deakins podcast, let us know at pod@teamdeakins.com. Thanks for listening. If you want more information and further discussion, check out the forums at www.rogerdeakins.com. Becoming a member is free, and you can ask follow-up questions there. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast for more new questions and topics. Also, check us out on Instagram at team.deakins. See you next time.